Always helps to switch on, doesn't it? Excellent. Right. We're now going to be talking about the essential building blocks that are needed to build a network of successful tourism enterprises. In this region, companies must recognize the operating environment within which they work. And the onus is on the private sector to step up, to develop partnerships, to drive the momentum towards a successful tourism industry. So this is about how to tackle sustainability, to get press coverage, to increase inbound travelers. And investors always look at the private sector to determine if a destination is supported by the locals. So we have an expert panel of speakers. They're all expert panels, I've got to say, from a consumer membership program, from the media, from academia, from business communities, and tour operation. And they're going to share their perspectives. So, if I could please welcome onto the stage Lynn Hughes, founding editor, Wanderlust Travel Media, UK. Please give your appreciation. Can I welcome back Kat Jordan? You've heard from her before, Communications Director, Travel Zoo. Welcome, Kat. Dr. Laurie Pennington-Gray, Smart State Centre for Excellence in Tourism and Economic Development, University of South Carolina. Hi, Laurie. Scarlett Sheriff, Sustainability Manager for TTC, the Travel Corporation. Welcome to the stage. And where is she? Biljana Braithwaite, CEO and founder of Plenary Partners. Welcome. Okay, so as I said, we're looking at the essential ingredients for a successful ecosystem of tourism enterprise in this region. And let's start with how to identify what partnerships will benefit your business and how to go about setting them up to tackle sustainability and ESG demands in particular. So, Biljana, I want to go to you first. You've got 20 years experience in this with your company. Actually, first of all, just explain, what does Plenary do as such?
We do exactly what the last panel spoke about. We design ESG strategies, we implement aspects of them, and we engage with businesses and financial institutions across the board, but some of them are in tourism sector. But I think one thing we might have not sort of mentioned, I think it was very good and very comprehensive sort of previous panel, is that there is a real business case for this agenda. So this is not a sort of financial versus non-financial sort of report and tension, and in particular in tourism. You will typically need to attract in order to sort of develop facilities. You'll need to attract financing. This financing will be at a minimum cheaper, and it may actually not be available if you're increasingly not complying with standards, to energy efficiency, to the fact that you'll be better embedded with the community, to the fact that your labor force will be happier, therefore sort of staying for longer, therefore sort of worry about it, to the fact that consumers increasingly are focusing on this. So it's not an agenda that is somehow going to long-term eat into the balance sheet. It may be short-term, but it's short-term investment, it's not a cost. And it's an investment that you increasingly need to make, that you cannot, it's no longer a nice to add, it's becoming necessary.
Because what are the dangers of companies in the Balkans, for example, or the Western Balkans certainly, not following the ESG path?
So I'll tell you, I mean, we just had ESG Adria Summit in Porto Montenegro over a month ago. I think we are at a point where it's no longer what are the dangers, it's a must if you need to attract investment or finances, simply because of our proximity to Europe and how regulation is evolving. But I do think that long-term, you're carrying a lot of risks. Even short-term, you're sort of exposing yourselves to risks like, community not accepting the project, etc. This is how we see majority of projects fail. It's not because of lack of their commitment to net zero. It's because of lack of what earlier speaker mentioned, early engagement with stakeholders, sort of mapping all those who have interests and concerns, and looking for ways to address them or sort of meet them, or at least make sure that they're all consulted, they're aware of them. In many ways, ESG is about risk management. ESG is about risk management, and therefore companies will discover that it's not an entirely new agenda. Many things they will be doing well. They may be well sort of treating their workforce properly. They will probably not have air conditioning running 24 hours because it's just not sensible economically. But now you need to look at the whole agenda, see where the gaps are, and advance sort of, and make sure that you're addressing it as a whole, because increasingly investors will refuse to engage with you. Insurance companies will increasingly be more concerned about reinsuring and insuring, and customers, consumers, and we see it across all industries, are becoming increasingly aware, and it's not only about Gen Z. That too is changing across the board, and we've heard from the previous panel, tourism industry has a vested interest in us staying as close to 1.5 Celsius as possible, because the impact is real, not only at skiing. The risks of fire, the heat, the summer heat will for sure affect destinations here in the region as travelers consider where to spend their August.
I want to pursue some other aspects of it, like how do partnerships come into all this as well in a moment. But I want to turn to Laurie and tell me, how does the Smart State Centre in Economic Excellence, how does that build resilience through partnerships in different destinations globally? How do you do that?
Thanks, Roja. I think, first of all, I'm really glad to be here. It's wonderful to be in a wonderful country. You've exceeded expectations beyond. And one of the things I think that helps is by developing relationships with people, and I think partnerships are about relationships. And it's really core to what we do at the Smart State Center is developing these relationships. Relationships with other private sector businesses, relationships with other academic institutions, relationships with public entities like government agencies, NGOs. We have looked at partnerships across all, and whether it's one-on-one or whether it's multi-unit partnerships, we have every type you can imagine, and we couldn't do what we do if we didn't have those partners.
And if there was a potential entrepreneur in the audience, how could they use your knowledge?
That's wonderful. In multiple ways. One of the things that we engage in is training for entrepreneurs. And we've worked and done workshops in many countries on content and training entrepreneurs. Others we have an advisory capacity also through the university as a consultant/advisory component. And so we go in and we can help in that capacity, whether that's with faculty or graduate students or undergraduates or a combination of all. We've done work with our graduate students and running projects. We've done a lot where we've had a small entrepreneurial bed and breakfast or an Airbnb come and say, well, we want some data. We'd like to know whether, market A is better than market B. Could you work with us? And so we have the opportunity to tap into our student market to be able to help with some of those things. And we have the leadership of the faculty to be able to guide that process. And that's something that is beneficial to the students as well as to the entrepreneur that may be looking for that data.
Because I think it's been said before, we talked before, but academia seems to be way ahead of everybody else in building partnerships. Tourism has got to learn some lessons, hasn't it, from academia. I think, obviously, each of you has specific areas that I'm going to talk to you about, but there is something that I think I wouldn't mind building this, having an open floor on this one, which is this whole idea, and it's the second part of the title, high-value global visitors. I think we should define that a bit more. Kat, how do you define it?
Well, I talked a bit earlier about the TravelZoom member globally and how there's 30 million of them around the world. Our members are people that like to travel. They do care about being responsible and traveling responsibly, but actually their main aim is to see the world in that responsible way. So for me, that high-value traveller is somebody that is prepared to leave their country, prepared to explore that bit further, and not just going to the main drag every single time, looking further. Extension and dispersal are key kind of pillars that we work to.
What would you say, Scarlett? What's high value for you? What's a high value visitor?
Hello. Nice to be on this panel. Hello, everybody. Hope you're still all awake and well. A high-value customer, guest. I think that's an interesting thing. I was thinking about it over today, and I was actually considering the fact that guests who are interested in sustainability would be visiting the location, the destination, for a longer length of time than your average guest. Instead of 3 nights, they'd probably stay 7 nights. They're also more likely to travel with their friends. They're definitely likely to shop locally and invest in the local economy. So that really depends, again, a bit on the storytelling and what we share with our guests and what the destination wants to say, what their story is. If you're interested in having this type of guest, then I'm definitely interested in helping that happen.
Very good. Now, you mentioned it, storytelling. It is absolutely crucial to all of this. And again, all of you can chip in here. But let's start with you, Lynn. We know how important storytelling is in terms of our jobs. We're journalists. We need to find good stories that attract people. We know, for example, what Jamaica is. Edmund Bartlett was here earlier. Everyone knows what Jamaica is, what it stands for, what its story is. Not so true, possibly, about certain countries in this region. Tell me, from your experience, well, first of all, tell me about Wanderlust and what your target market would want. But how important is storytelling?
Yeah. And I'll pick up on Jamaica, actually, as well. It's showing Edmund's not here. I think he's gone. Our audience at Wanderlust is actually the traveller who is into local culture, into nature, into authentic experiences, into sustainability. We've been going 31 years, and when we started, I think it was called responsible tourism back then. We've seen all those changes over the years. But basically, yes, we're not about mass tourism, and we're not going to appeal to people who want mass tourism. And so we very much we try and immerse ourselves in destinations, try and get under the skin of a destination, and show, if you like, the real, more authentic side of a destination. That's what people buy us for, and we are the #1 travel magazine in the UK, and available in a lot of other countries as well. So, and our logo, if you like, is taking the road less travelled. And so, going with the times as well, now we are very much talking about travelling out of season and travelling well away from the honeypot destinations. And of course, those have changed over the years, so we've had to adapt to that. But yes, we are always looking for those stories that will inspire and excite our audience. And you mentioned Jamaica. I mean, Jamaica, you say, yeah, everybody's got a picture of Jamaica. And what I do find quite sad, though, is that there are quite a few tourists who go to Jamaica and stay in all-inclusives. And they don't get to experience the real Jamaica. And so, actually, I was invited out a couple of years ago to go there and do a story about the real Jamaica. Mm-hmm. And so they have, because, for instance, tourists were a bit scared of going to downtown Kingston, there's been a lot of work to rejuvenate, to change that image, to put on tours led by locals within Kingston.
I've been there. Trenchtown, in fact.
Yeah, exactly. So you'll know there's some amazing initiatives there. There's the art mural tour, and the guy who showed me around that was a former musician who knew Bob Marley, knew Peter Tosh, and so on. So there were so many stories there. And then I stayed on the south coast, where it was very much local community. All the businesses were local community. There were no big chains there. You were safe, completely safe to just walk around, meet locals, and you had a completely local experience. And we did, with Jamaica, we did a reader event during the Commonwealth Games. It was sold out. In fact, we had a queue down the street of people wanting to join it. And people came up afterwards and said, oh, you know, that's what we want to go and do. Or we went there and we stayed in an all-inclusive and can't believe that we missed out on so much. So I think more and more people now are looking for those, if you like, real experiences. And so this is where this region obviously has so much to offer. And it's a case, though, of getting those stories over.
Exactly.
And I came last year, and it was because, basically, Ibrahim himself had told me about the wild horses on the plateau.
Yep.
And immediately it gave me an image. I had an image in my head of horses. I was intrigued. So I came, and I did lots of other wonderful things as well. But I knew there was going to be a story that I could do about the wild horses. I could bring that into the wider story. And in fact, the very last line of my article talks about how my memories would be of the wild horses running free on the plateau. Just yesterday, we were only in Mostar for an hour or two. But again, so many stories just straight away, things to bring me back. We had a traditional coffee. You know, and this guy Yaz talked about the way they've made coffee for the last 500 years, about how it's a ritual, about the importance of it. And you then gain a respect for the coffee. He had us who were there entranced. And there will be something about that on the Wanderlust website within the next week or two. Right. So it's just those little gems, those stories, and those are the things that are going to give people a picture of a country, of a culture, and going to make them want to come and experience it themselves.
Absolutely. I mean, and that applies to any, again, entrepreneur here. It's all very well having a great product, but you've got to tell the story, create characters, make people want to come. Again, I'm speaking personally as somebody who has to makes travel programs, and is always looking for that ingredient. I agree with you. But you raise another interesting point there, which is the story could be negative. If you look at Jamaica, that side of things. I remember I once went to, I went to Colombia, and there's obviously that whole thing about the Colombian drug trade and all that stuff. And their great tagline, you probably know this, was "The only danger is that you'll want to stay," which is just brilliant, brilliant marketing. And now, similarly, and I'm going to ask you this, Laurie, because you deal with crisis management. A country like a region like this, let's not pretend it's not here, has got, for some people, certain connotations. How would you challenge that if you were advising people?
Great question. One of the things I think is important is just getting the word out about, you know, the stories and making sure that people are aware of what there is and available, and working with the media to get that out. The images that are available or that are in people's minds can be replaced with what is real, and I think that has to be done, especially in the United States. There were many people that asked me, you know, are you going to be okay if you go to Bosnia Herzegovina? And I said, yes, why? And so I think it's important that we're, you know, providing information globally, not just to source markets, but to the whole world, and getting that out. And that's part of managing a crisis in the mind, a crisis, you know, of perception. And I think that's what that might be.
Brianna, you're from Montenegro. What's the story there, would you say? Or am I generalizing too much?
No. I'm of the region, and I do have a place in Montenegro. That's absolutely right. I mean, less so the concern of instability. I think I've never heard anyone coming. I think Montenegro is sort of seen as the new exotic thing, sort of Croatia is sort of been visited, and now, but you know, another thing, and this goes back to your high value, I think a lot of people, when you tell them high value tourist, would say, yes, that's what we need in the region. We simply don't have space for massive tourism. We sort of see that our infrastructure is reversing. That is a tourist who is able to spend more significant amount of money, will stay for longer, will want to enjoy different things, and you know, to the benefit of various providers. You know, I have time and again been with sort of Brits, Germans, Italians, not only in Montenegro, in the region, who would in one breath say, beautiful, wonderful, such a shame you're not doing enough to protect nature, such a shame you're not doing enough to protect. And then, they'd see that, recycling is sort of not in place. All of these are becoming eyesores for your high-value visitor. And that's why you need to go back to sustainability, I think. So I think that's sort of valid for Montenegro, valid for the region. There are sort of, everyone does something a little bit better, something a little bit worse, but Slovenia is a sort of brilliant example of doing everything well, but then Slovenia is sort of has always really, and many can learn from Slovenia, but I think that's how these two agendas are becoming aligned. Actually, if this is what we are saying we want to attract, we are attracting someone who will want to enjoy natural beauty, who will want to see cultural heritages, who will want to have unique experiences, which inevitably means engaging local community. There is nothing unique about what multinational will bring to a venue. Yes, okay, you've come for your 5-star experience in whatever hotel, but then you want to get out and experience something, and for that, you need to preserve all of this. So I would say that the story of Montenegro is sort of breathtakingly beautiful, and the story is incredibly compact in terms of experiences you can have in a very short time, because you've got gorgeous mountains, canyons, sort of very diverse and beautiful coast, but it's tiny, and it has 600,000 citizens. So I think that is an attraction in itself. It's a sort of hugely diverse country, incredibly friendly, and I think this is what they're sort of trying to sell. But I wouldn't say that there is a sort of national brand as such, and that someone is sort of thinking through the stories, although there isn't a war one to sort of deal with, at least, which is a sort of silver lining, I guess. But I think, Montenegro, for example, branded itself as ecological state almost 30 years ago. I mean, wrote it in constitution. Hasn't done more than the rest of the region about it, but someone has spotted and recognized that this is sort of, to preserve this, you need to go down the sustainability track.
Interesting. Okay, so let's get now to the two of you who perhaps represent quite a lot of people and brands and potential customers. Scarlett, I think you're quite new to the job.
Yes, yeah.
The Travel Corporation has, 40 brands?
40 brands, yeah.
Yeah.
I present 4 of them at the moment, so 1%, yeah.
And let's see what happens there. And sustainability is obviously high in your agenda. But going back to the story thing, as you explore this region, as you say, well, okay, what can we do here? Are you willing to work with small suppliers and help them with their efforts to create the story, to create the product?
Yes, I think that's what's so exciting about the Travel Corporation, and also perhaps this position that I have within the Travel Corporation. I have a wonderful job of trying to connect to suppliers who are working sustainably within their communities, all different experiences connected to environment, social projects. I want to know who those suppliers are. I want to get connected to them. Already in the last few days, I've traveled around Bosnia and Herzegovina, and it's been beautiful. I see lots of opportunities. So I need people. The Travel Corporation needs these experiences. We have a Make Travel Matter experience on every tour, across all our brands, and this is a particular experience which is chosen on the positive impact it has on social or environmental influence on that destination. And it allows us to do 2 things. It allows us to give back to the destination, and it also allows us to raise awareness for our guests who are ever increasingly interested in sustainability. And also unique experiences. These are experiences that our guests would not normally have the opportunity to interact with, and they're incredibly enriching. Sometimes we get to do things that people have never dreamt of doing, learning about issues that they had no idea existed. This is an incredible opportunity and a wonderful way of really creating connection, relationships. And the other part of it is really about storytelling. In Bosnia and Herzegovina, you have the most incredible nature. It's so beautiful. It really touches your heart. And this is the thing that we have to protect most in our world. We're nothing without our beautiful planet. Storytelling affects our discourse, the very words that we use. That's where our stories lie. We've all had probably these experiences of interacting with Bosnia, being moved by the beauty of the environment. This is incredible. Let's work with that. You are so rich in your environment. Let's cherish it. And let's make sure that we enshrine that in our tourism here in Bosnia and Herzegovina, yeah.
But I think at the same time, you say beautiful environment, beautiful nature, it's quite general, isn't it? Again, you're going to want with these individual companies or products, when Lynn mentioned the wild horses, that is a very strong brand, isn't it? The Mostar Bridge is a very strong brand, the divers. There are certain aspects which provide really unique, specific stories. Again, would you talk to suppliers, like, look, help develop, I think you're an ex-journalist or something, aren't you? Or an ex-actor or something. There's something interesting about you in the background somewhere. But anyway, storytelling is I suspect is in your blood. Would you talk to them and help them develop it?
So yeah, absolutely. So the way that we work with smaller suppliers, so we do, and we have a number of experiences here already that we've worked on with our lovely team here, and a colleague of mine who was here last year, we did a fam trip of 5 Make Travel Matter experiences which were involved in the itinerary, which was fig cake making, going to some of the eco-lodges, dining in Sarajevo with a family and learning about their recipes and their history. And of course, smaller suppliers and us as a large corporation, we have, of course, a bit of a power imbalance there sometimes too, and we do have to tread carefully. We want to work well. We want to make sure that we are following the traditions and the experiences that are here in the way that you want us to experience them. So yes, we run trials. If you have an experience that you're thinking, I've just told you something that makes you think, I've got a fantastic tradition or a beautiful nature walk or a incredible species that we want to talk about, then I can work with you to create an experience. We can do a number of things. For example, first of all, if you're not sure if there is an experience there, you can talk to me and raise advice, because we have a lot of advice in that capacity of creating product, especially with small suppliers. We work with you trialing, making sure that you can understand the volume, because we are a large volume. Our groups, our size is around 48 people. So we will help you through that process. We'll troubleshoot so that you feel prepared. We'll trial it numerous times. If, for example, you have very highly sustainable values, we'll make sure that those can be reflected in your contract, and then we'll begin, essentially. And as in every tourism business and trial, the more you do it, the better you get. So that's a lovely thing. Practice makes perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect at the beginning. We're willing to work with you to get it there. Yeah.
Interesting. Kat, you have a certain demographic, don't you, with your 30 million subscribers? Although most of them, a lot of them, are older. Is that fair? A lot of them are into gastronomy, wine possibly, things like that. So what would bring them to this region, do you think?
Well, we just ran a survey in the last couple of days, and actually looking at it, the Spanish, the French, and the Americans, their top answer for the type of vacation they want to take is historical and cultural. So that's what's going to bring them to the region. We've got 13 million Americans who are subscribed to TravelZoo, and they are Americans that have passports and want to travel. As we know, they don't all fit that category. So it's going to be the historical stories, the cultural stories. And I did the tour of Sarajevo yesterday and saw 2 or 3 different American groups really getting into detail and asking questions. So yeah, they're really, really keen to learn more about the region, the wider region completely.
And in a way, what's the tipping point? What makes everyone suddenly say, let's go to this region? How does it work?
Well, we would work in 3 ways. So we'd obviously tell the story in a similar way to the way that Lynn would do at Wanderlust, and telling the destination story. But we also work with tour operators, so packaging up actual packages, 3-day packages, week-long packages from any of those countries. And then we'd also work directly with resorts as well, which would also be something that we would do to drive people there. So we're kind of looking at it from a tactical point of view as well as a storytelling point of view, based on the destination or resort's needs.
I want to get on to partnerships, collaboration, and Bilhan, I said I'll come back to you on that. Just explain again, what's the value of partnerships and collaboration, especially in a region like this?
Before I do that, I can't resist sort of just tagging on what you said. It also very much depends, I think, on what's considered by historical and cultural. We had here in Sarajevo, and it was very peculiar, before COVID, it's died down now, you had groups of Chinese coming for a different historical tour. Their tour was Walter Defense Sarajevo tour, because for decades and decades, they could only watch movies from Yugoslavia and sort of non-aligned countries. There was this movie called Walter Defense Sarajevo, and I kid you not, tours were organized, and then they would go to Dubrovnik and do the Game of Thrones tour. So I guess it's a sort of catering to different audiences. You would also, and your high-value customers from different parts of the world would be wanting different things, but it worked like magic in Sarajevo because the main actor is a national hero, so many people know him. I mean, on partnerships, from wherever you start. You speak to institutional investors, and some are less rude than others, but they'll all say, is there a country with more than 10 million? No. Do you know what? It's just not worth it. So I think in order to get serious investment, in order to get really sort of, and we talk a lot about sort of serious long-term investment, you need to team up as the region. So that's more at sort of, it could be sort of between private entities, depending on sort of what it is. I mean, for governments, I don't know, to which extent you've traveled around the region, but I just find it really difficult to grasp that railways worked better when I was a teenager than they do now. And that you can't do without teaming up. There is a lot of funding available from sort of EU on that front. So you've got sort of, you've got your private partnership, you've got your public partner, you've got then, and we've seen this actually in Tibet. You've got, where so we did our summit, you've got in a very close proximity, one and only, Chedi and IG Group Regent, who are all relying on an airport that is keeling over any minute, and whose passengers in their private jets or in other aircraft are having very frustrating experiences. So they are having vested interest in partnering with the municipality, with the government. They sort of simply have to get this going. I mean, they could say that's not our job, but their business depends on that. So the value of partnership is sort of huge. And you've also seen that sort of with Tibet in particular, the city is flourishing because Porto Montenegro development next to it in particular has sort of, what you'd call in ESG talk, is working to secure its license to operate, i.e. it's really engaging with the community, it's reinvesting in community, you can see sort of parks being developed, schools being invested into, sports club being invested into, it's a main employer, and that shows. And that's a partnership that will actually, all of these partnerships will be very much in the best interest of the investor. And I think, I understand that it's sometimes frustrating that a municipal service doesn't work or this doesn't work, and you could step back and say, it's none of our business. But actually, it's your operating environment, and if you want to make things work, for the time being, you need to prop it up a little. And I think the private investors who sort of, spotted that and have supported these sort of municipalities then see that World Bank comes, sort of IFC comes, CPRD comes, and things change. And then you suddenly have these flagship municipalities that are doing much better across the board. And that's a result initially of the private-public partnership. So the value is huge. I mean, wherever you look, and I guess in systems like ours, where you can't be fully reliant on government to be in charge of everything, there is even more. There is even more of a value.
And let's be honest, in this particular country, it's much more fragmented. It's not a singular. For example, I mean, Lynn, how much does it affect you that there's no single countrywide tourism board?
That makes a huge difference. There isn't a countrywide tourist board, there isn't a PR agency, there isn't a communications company for the country. So to be frank, it was very much down to Ibrahim that I came, because
he's a one-man tourist board.
He's a one-man tourist board, because he told me about the wild horses, he told me about other things as well, that got me interested. And that is the challenge, obviously, for a lot of countries. How they, and in this region in particular, how do they communicate if there isn't a state tourist board, or if that tourist board hasn't, for instance, got a PR and communications agency, and a good one. There are some bad, not so good ones out there. So it's tricky. Now, I think there are still things, though, that organisations can do, that private organisations and people, hoteliers and everything can do. I mean, social media has made such a change. I'm sure you get reached out to lots on social media. I find experience providers, I find eco-lodgers, I find lots of places tagging me on social media, reaching out to me via social media. And that's not perfect, but it does at least make me sometimes aware of a story.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I do sometimes hear about experiences, about providers, about stories that way. But yes, there are definitely challenges.
So in terms of that, Laurie, and anyone else chip in, we've got about 8 minutes left. How do you enable the private sector to build bridges, to build collaboration, to build partnerships? What's the mechanism that helps them do that?
Well, not that I'm biased, but I would say that the academic community can play a great role in that. And I think that's something that we do pretty well in the U.S. We're very involved, and we like to say we sit at the table. Sometimes as a leader, but sometimes as just part of the team. And I think, academics bring to the table somewhat of an unbiased but credible position. And so you're able to bridge the gaps a lot of times between two different perspectives and be able to lead a team down a path that may not be able to be led if they were to try and find an entity that couldn't do that. Having a university or 2 or 3 here that are very involved in tourism, I think is a great opportunity. I think it's one that's untapped. I think they have some wonderful faculty that I was able to engage with yesterday. I want to go back, actually, if I have a second, to the previous panel that said that there were 2 concerns with lack of data and lack of ability to analyze data. And in these 2 capacities, I mean, you have resources at the university that can do both those things. And so using the university partnerships and coming together collectively to address lack of data. When in the US, we were able to bring together a number of stakeholders that had issues related to lack of understanding and lack of data about residents' perceptions of tourism and what it meant for over-tourism. And so we as a university led that initiative, and we brought together multiple partners, both private sector and public sector, to address the issue. An interesting method that we used was we were able to use it as a call for proposals within the university. So we didn't just limit it to tourism faculty. We actually encouraged the faculty to go out and create these collective and interdisciplinary teams to respond to the question that the industry posed. And we had 5 different proposals come forward, and we had an industry team that evaluated them and then said, okay, this is who's going to get the reward and do the project. And so they completed the project, and they funded it, and private sector did. And then they were able to help to use that to generate the information they needed, particularly for policies. And so they could, have access now to spend data and visitation length and motivations and intentions and some of the things that they did not have access to. So I don't think they would have thought to do it if they hadn't had academics at the table. And the other is, most PhDs are fairly well versed in methodologies as well as statistics. And so you've got a great resource at your universities that can help to analyze this data. That you may have an abundance of data, but you may not know what to do with it. Why not turn to the university? And again, we're moving towards this interdisciplinary model where we're not just looking at people like me that are, tourism PhDs, but I work with biologists, chemists, engineers, social scientists, lawyers, and I have access to teams from all over campus because we're talking regularly. And so it's not, even if your point of contact might be at, an individual who's a tourism faculty, if they don't have that expertise, they should be able to have this network within the university that can bring somebody that has that to the table.
Okay.
So I highly encourage the country to look, inward and look towards the partners that you already have and develop better strengths.
Okay, so we're going into that, what I would call solutions-focused stuff now, which is good, because there's no point just raising problems. We're talking about how can we solve them to a certain extent. What about other ideas in terms of partnerships? Kat, I mean, how do you see it? I mean, what about a partnership? Now, this was raised quite early on. What about a partnership between you and Scarlett?
Absolutely.
And what would that mean?
We don't know yet, but we met last week and we've already started talking about it. So, yeah,
right.
Exactly that. I was going to say to Laurie, the Travel South partnership in the US? Mm-hmm. So there's 11 US states that don't really have the might on their own, but they club together because they're trying to tell a story of a certain part of America. And they actually, in bringing that together and having partners pitch to be their partner, they actually add massive amount of weight to the story that they're telling. So it is definitely about collaboration, be it at academic level or a local level, that will bring the positive future that they need.
Yeah. Scarlett, any thoughts on
Yes.
partnerships?
Yeah, well, absolutely. The Travel Corporation, obviously we have a partnership here with the Resilience Council and USAID, but the Travel Corporation is interested in sustainable tourism because we see the value that it has for us. So, of course, because we have a sustainable strategy, a climate action plan, we've pledged to net zero, we need those partners. Net zero, in fact, brings partnerships together because we cannot reach it alone. We are all indebted to each other with Scope 3 emissions. We have to work together. So we're looking for suppliers and partnerships always who are helping us get to that goal. And that's what we definitely need here as well. In Bosnia and Herzegovina, we need partners that are going to help us reach those goals. And likewise, anywhere else who is also excited about reaching those goals and thinking creatively to get there, because it hasn't been done before. And we need all the creative power we can have and all the sharing. Really, I love what you were saying, Laurie, to be able to reach those goals.
Sharing, not competing. That theme comes up a lot, doesn't it, in everything we're talking about. Don't keep your data to yourself. Don't keep all this stuff to yourself. Share it out because everyone wins in the end. And that is so appropriate, I suspect, to this region in particular. You've actually got a philanthropic organisation, haven't you?
Yes.
What does that do then? Would it help in this regard?
Yeah, absolutely. The Treasure Out Foundation, yes, is a not-for-profit connected to the Travel Corporation, and they actually have a carbon fund in order to help us get to net zero. And this carbon fund is often used for nature-based solutions to help us arrive there. And we have some really exciting projects from working with destinations who have pledged to net zero as well, such as Scotland, who we're currently working with at the moment, but also investing in nature-led solutions. So a new one which is on the way is working with a small association in Venice, which is looking after the north part of the conservation of the lagoon, who are employing the fishermen who have lost out on their work there. Thanks to the climate crisis, they no longer have fish to fish, but they're now going to be paid to conserve the northern part of the lagoon. And we've just been the first organization to invest in this association because we see what potential there is there. And of course, we visit Venice all the time, and we want to give back to that destination and ensure that it is there and that we appreciate, also the environment there, as well as the city and the cultural heritage, that the environment also has to come first.
It's exciting, really exciting. And, sometimes we think about these big events and conferences as being just a bunch of people who are talking to each other at a very high level and it doesn't really apply to others. But guess what? this kind of conversation, meeting people here, networking here, creates things. Things happen because of events and summits like this. And you've already stimulated me. I'm thinking, wow, I'm buzzing. Let's do some stuff. And I hope you have that same energy too. Can I please, it's always too short, can I please thank my panel here for their really interesting insights into what can be done in this region and beyond. Thank you.
Thank